Of course, most media outlets have spent far more time and effort covering the FBI memo's release than the actual allegations contained in the memo itself. It's almost like the allegations, which are that the U.S. government illegitimately spied on its own citizens, barely matter to them. They don't care about you or something. It's funny. Andrew Klavan is a contributing editor at City Journal. Terry Turchi is a former FBI Deputy Assistant Director for Counterterrorism, and they both join us tonight. Terry, first to you, since this pertains to the agency you spent so much time at. You're hearing people on other channels, there's almost a chorus of it, and it's becoming almost hysterical, I would say, that people who are interested in seeing this information or have questions about the FBI are unpatriotic, that they are insulting the men and women of the FBI. Do you think that?
No, I don't think that at all, Tucker. In fact, everything the FBI does should be out in the open, and we should be questioning it. And certainly we should be having questions about things like this. Nothing about any of these cases and what has been now confirmed in the memo have ever looked normal. And we have to ask ourselves, why were so many safeguards and guidelines and procedures that we always followed never followed here? And I'll say one more thing to that. When I left the FBI and when I went into the FBI, we had a saying that you don't want to even just be concerned about propriety and the propriety of what you do. You also want to be equally concerned about the appearance of impropriety. And in fact, I have a lot of friends and colleagues that got in a lot of trouble because of the appearance of impropriety. And this has that at the very minimum written all over it.
Yeah. And so you don't, just to make sure I'm absolutely clear on this, you don't feel diminished as a veteran of the FBI when people ask questions about its behavior?
Not at all. And in fact, I've talked to a lot of friends in the FBI and outside, and all of us are concerned about the irregularities of this and the top level of the FBI in the last few months.
Yeah, well, I can certainly see why. So, Mr. Klavan, what do you make of the press coverage of this? Do you think it has been designed to serve the public interest or something else?
Oh, I think it's a scandal within a scandal, and almost as bad as the scandal in the FBI. I mean, we just finished watching Spielberg's movie, The Post, about how brave the Washington Post was to defy the Nixon administration and bring out the Pentagon Papers despite their cries that it would hurt national security. Right. Now suddenly national security is sacrosanct and more important than information. I remember decades of the left squealing about J. Edgar Hoover and his unjustified wiretaps, and now suddenly we're told that unjustified wiretapping is a nothing burger. You know, the press has done nothing for this past year but whine about how Donald Trump has slapped them back and forth. But now, when it comes to releasing information, this is information that in no way damaged the public good, in no way damaged our national security. The press, the people who are supposed to speak truth to power and about power, are trying to cover it up and suppress it and spin it to make it less important. It's actually appalling, and it just brings that old Latin tag, you know, who will guard the guardians? If we've lost a press that really cares about the truth, if we've lost a press willing to hold any powerful person to high standards, then we've lost the people who are supposed to guard.
But how does a journalist, how does someone who calls himself a journalist, whose default position you would think would always be more information, as long as there's no grave downside, how does that person argue against showing the public things it's entitled to see?
It's amazing, and I really do think it is a holdover from the Obama administration, an administration that turned the federal government essentially into a Chicago-style machine full of cronies and corruption and outward malfeasance. I mean, malfeasance we could see, like the IRS scandal, while the press stood by, afraid, I think, to lay a finger on a president who they looked at as, you know, the first black president, certainly, and as the spokesman for their point of view, their ideological point of view, and they didn't want to touch him. And when you have no press, the government is going to get out of control, and the Obama administration did.
Very quickly, Ms. Churchy, do you think that it's in the FBI's interest to declassify what it can as it pertains to this investigation? You know, things that don't obviously jeopardize our national security, but to the extent it can, tell us more.
The natural tendency for me and any other FBI official would be to say no. But in this instance, the answer is definitely yes. This goes way beyond what the FBI does, what the case is about, or what this particular series of circumstances is about. This goes right to the idea of civil liberties and the balance that the FBI is responsible for ensuring between criminal investigations, national security, and civil liberties. And we messed up. And we just simply have to get this out. And the sooner we do, the sooner people see as much as they can see and as much as is safe to show them as from a national security perspective, the better off we'll all be. Because right now, as we've seen today, national security wasn't the argument for this.
No, they lied about that. Thank you both. That was really interesting. I appreciate your perspective.
Thanks, Tucker.
The president wants it out, even though there are concerns that the work of tens of thousands of law enforcement and counterintelligence professionals may be smeared.
It's staggering to see how Republicans continue to put party over principle.
This is a tipping point for our democracy. Are we going to be a democracy after today, or is this going to be demagoguery and despotism?
Paul Ryan is now no longer on Team USA or on even Team Old Republican Party. He's on Team Nunes, which means he's on Team Trump, which means to some extent they're advancing in some sense the interests of Russia.
Ask questions and you're working for Putin. Well, there's particularly a meltdown over the release of the FBI memo by the hyenas in the press. Why is that? Why shouldn't we have been allowed to see it? What's wrong with a little transparency? Chris Hahn, a former aide to Senator Schumer and radio show host, joins us tonight. So, Chris, it's a super simple question. Why should I, as a taxpayer, a voter, an adult man, if Democrats had their way, I wouldn't have been allowed to see this. Why?
I think that the big problem with it wasn't just that they didn't want you to see the memo. They wanted
Well, they didn't want me to see it. Why didn't they want me to see it?
Well, they wanted to have some balance. They wanted to see the source documents released so that people could make their own judgment.
That's
and they
not
wanted
true.
their memo released as well. Look, I've been reading this memo all day, Tucker.
Wait, stop. They didn't want the source documents released. That's factually untrue. They could release them right now. For example, the testimony of Andrew McCabe before the Intel Committee is a source document. The request to the FISA court, those are source documents. Democrats don't want those released.
Of course they do.
Really? Then why haven't they? Come on now.
I've talked to you about this last week. These are the exact things I said last week about this document. Let's see all the documents. Let's see the source document.
Well, then we're in agreement there, and I think that we will.
Yes.
And I'll be interested to see who stands in the way of that.
Right.
But up until today, Democrats have stood in the way of releasing this. Now, if you think that there is libelous material in here, factually inaccurate material that libels somebody, tell me. If you think it imperils American national security, tell me how.
Right.
But in the absence of those two factors, I have a right to see it. Why would Democrats stand in the way of that right?
You know what? I've been reading this all day, and it kind of reminds me of when Geraldo Rivera opened Al Capone's vault. There was a lot of hype, and then there was nothing in it. I don't know.
Well, then why would Democrats then why would Democrats, if there's nothing in it, every Democrat in the House had a chance to read this, every single one.
Right.
Why would they, having read it, tell me that I'm not allowed to see it? I'm confused. You're making two arguments that contradict
Let me tell you
one another.
something. I'm watching this document now. I'm looking at this document now. They probably should have just said let it out because it proves nothing. It doesn't endanger the Russia probe. It actually shows that Papadopoulos was under surveillance for good reason. There's a lot of things in there that actually prove the case that a lot of Democrats have been making on the Hill.
Look, I'm not here to rebut the rationale for the Russia probe. That may be another show. But this memo doesn't speak to those things. You're right. I said it at the outset.
Right.
What it speaks to is the surveillance of an American citizen called Carter Page, who graduated from the Naval Academy and has in the years since shown no evidence at all that he's working for the Russian government.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Okay,
Carter Page has been under surveillance by the FBI since 2013 when he was approached by the Russians, and he was told that he was being recruited by the Russians.
But you're missing this. Hold on.
Yeah.
There's no evidence. I'm not saying he wasn't surveilled. Indeed, he was surveilled. That's the point. There's no. In order to be surveilled, the Obama Justice Department had to make the case that he was a foreign agent. There's no evidence that he was a foreign agent. That is a slander against him. So where's the evidence that he was working for Russia, that he betrayed America?
Well, this memo isn't concerned about evidence. This memo is concerned about Devin Nunes. Since 2013, the FBI has been warning Carter Page about Russians trying to recruit him. He continued down the same path.
That doesn't mean that so he's guilty? So it's a really simple question. Do you think that Carter Page has betrayed his country by working for a hostile foreign nation. That's the claim the Obama Justice Department made to a FISA court 4 times.
I don't know.
I want to know, is it true or not?
I don't know if it's true or not, but when we see the underlying
kind of a heavy
source
charge to make against a man, don't you think?
When we see the source documents, we're going to find out what Carter Page was doing with the Russians and how that connected to the Trump
Well, why is he
campaign.
not in jail? Why does Carter Page stride a free man when he has betrayed his country? These are very heavy charges you guys are throwing around against someone who has not been indicted or convicted and against whom there is no publicly available evidence. And I don't understand why you continue to do that.
Why Carter Page is walking the street is a question that should keep a lot of Republicans up at night. Let's just leave it at that.
You know, it's hard to believe you would say something like that on live television. Do you have evidence that he is working against America?
No, I have absolutely no evidence. But when a guy has been under surveillance by the FBI since 2013, and there were 4 FISA
Martin
renewals.
Luther King was under surveillance for more than a decade by the FBI. Does that mean he's guilty?
You cannot
what is
get
this?
a FISA renewal unless you show the judge you have evidence that the American citizen was involved with what you are claiming he was involved with.
But we know now, and it's indisputable, that at least part of that evidence, the lead of the FISA request, was the Trump dossier, which the FBI
That is not
itself...
what this memo even says. It does not say that.
It certainly does
and it surely
say that.
doesn't prove that. That's for sure.
Okay. I just want to restate one question to you.
Yeah.
Do you have evidence, any evidence, that Carter Page is guilty of the crimes you've charged him with on this show?
Absolutely
and the crime specifically,
not. I don't know if
then
he's
you probably shouldn't suggest he's guilty of
betraying
his country.
Well, I didn't say he was guilty. I think he might be talking to some people, and that's probably why he's still walking the streets.
Well, this is getting really heavy. Okay, thank you, Chris.